What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about VGC's review of A Plague Tale Requiem. Now, it just came out today, the review. The game technically comes out tomorrow, right? And everybody's doing the reviews for it. Now, for transparency's sake, and I do think it's obviously important and part of the discussion, I did do a review of this game on my main channel. I personally loved it. I'm not here, fanboying out to the game, trying my best to defend it against every single criticism. That's not what it's about. It's my game of the year, okay, just for transparency. But the thing that I found hilarious was that, when the reviews started coming out, there's some very good Twitter, handles that did, compilations, and they put, all right, well, here's all these people, and here's what they're giving the game. And the game is, I think, averaging right now like an 84, 8.4 out of 10, 84 out of 100, however you want to, word that in your own scale. And there's all these scores, and it's, again, averaging an 84. And then you have Video Game Chronicle, who gives it a 2 out of 5 stars, which is obviously equivalent to a 4 out of 10 or 40 out of 100. And, I read the review. It's not a good review, personally, how I feel. But what I found even funnier, and this normally does happen with, and I don't want to be that person, and so I'm going to kind of explain the background here. I didn't want to be this person, but I did look and I said, I wonder what they gave Saints Row. Saints Row, comes out this year. I personally hated it. A lot of people hated it. If you liked it, totally cool. I know there are people that liked it on my own channel. That's fine. I do think it is a very bad game, and I was thinking, well, we don't get many games like a Saints Row that, everything is subjective. It's art. It's a form of art in terms of games. But, I think a lot of people look at that game as not being good, right? And so normally you don't really have that. Sometimes games fall in that. Well, maybe it's good to some, maybe it's not so good to others. But it's often rare that we get a game that, almost unanimously we kind of agree upon that it's an awful game. And so I was wondering, all right, well, what did they give that? And they gave it the same score. So Saints Row, which came out a few months ago, 2 months ago, right? And A Plague Tale Requiem gets the same score on VGC. Now, here's the deal. Here's where I would now differ than the times I've seen this happen in the past. I'm aware it's not the same reviewer. I'm aware different people can look at two different games and wind up on the same score, okay? I get that. My issue is kind of larger than that, and I've talked about this before on both these channels for a very long time, and I try to kind of push this whenever I can. I very much am against scores. I really am against scores. I make fun of a lot when it's like, well, what's the difference between a 7.8 and a 7.7? And the answer is, I don't think anybody on this planet can tell me what the difference between a 7... If you see a game that gets a 7.8 versus 7.7, can you tell me the difference in that 0.1? And, to IGN's credit, they actually, took that criticism, went to the 0.5, so it could get a 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5. It could do that, and it couldn't get the other points. And then they went back to the old way, which was that way. And so it's, look, it's a nitpick maybe thing, but it's something I've always tried to focus on, where I think review scores are kind of stupid. I think, and specifically because of that, right? You can't tell a difference between can you even tell a difference between a 7.9 and a 7.7? What's the difference there? You know what I mean? So you have that, but then you also have issues, honestly, like this. Now, yes, there are two different reviewers, but also you think about it and you say, all right, well, taking a few steps back, it's still the site. When you're working for, VGC, or you're working for IGN, you're working for GameSpot, you are giving the score, and you're giving the score. It's got your name on it, but the site is the one. It's the publication that's giving it the score. So when you see it on Metacritic, when you see it on OpenCritic, when people are talking about IGN gave this game an 8, well, technically, it was a person at IGN, but it's IGN. You know what? And again, that is my issue. That's a big issue to me. I like the independence that people like me, or just anybody online that is independent. I like that because I'm reviewing A Plague Tale. I'm reviewing Gotham Knights. I'm reviewing whatever, and you can say, okay, well, Alex views this game, and how does he view X game versus Y game? For these sites, it's hard to do that because you're not really looking at that. You're saying, well, IGN or VGC gave Saints Row a 4, and they gave Plague Tale a 4. But the issue is, those are two different people in there, but you can still circle back. It's an endless loop, because there should be, and there is, criteria for why a game should get a specific score. So look, on one level, Do I agree with the score of giving it a 4 out of 10? No, I think that's laughable. I think that's hilarious. And so part of the reason I wanted to make this video was to say I just, disagree, I guess, with that score. I think it's funny. At the same time, I've kind of softened as time has gone on, but I mean, to be honest, I understand that, if you give the game a 4 out of 10, whatever. I mean, it's literally one person's opinion. It's one person's opinion that's a 4 out of 10. You don't have to agree with it. I certainly don't. Does that mean the site should be shut down or anything? No. You know what I mean? Now, maybe you could laugh at it and say that's a really stupid score, but that's probably as far as it can go. So that's part of the reason I wanted to make this video is, sometimes with these games, and you do see it from time to time, there will be that one huge outlier score. And to be honest, this is that, right? Plague Tale, it averages an 8.4 or an 84. If it didn't have a 4 out of 10 dragging it down, it may move up to 85, 86, right? Now, there are scores still like below, let's say, an 8, but I think that's the only one that gave it a score of 4. And so again, when you get these games and there's just a score that's so blatantly, much lower than others, you kind of laugh at it. But in the same way, then again, I was like, well, let's do some research here and let's see what they gave Saints Row. And again, I get it, 2 different people, but you take some steps back and you say, Video Game Chronicle gave Saints Row a 4. Video Game Chronicle gave a Plague Tale Requiem a 4. It is 2 different people, but they work for the company, and it's the company's label that is giving it the score. So when you go on Metacritic or you're talking to your friend, I don't know if you bring up VGC, but you're saying, hey, VGC gave both these games a 4. And that makes it look really bad. Now, in my opinion, that is a sign, that's another, I guess, example for why we shouldn't do review scores. I think we should have, long explanations of how you feel about a game. Don't give it a score, and then see if people agree or disagree with parts of what you're saying. Now, that's what I do. I am being pretty, subjective here, because that's kind of the way I do it. I don't give the score, I just kind of talk about it, but I think that's the better way to go. But even if you go based off of a score, see, this is where the issue lies. If you go based off a score, well, now you have to kind of, contemplate in your head or just go over, okay, well, I'm going based off the score. Well, Saints Row and Plague Tale both got a 4. And look, I mean, if you hated Saints Row or you saw the negativity for Saints Row and it got a 4, and then Plague Tale gets a 4, well, what does that say about Plague Tale? And I maybe there's some subjectiveness to, well, maybe Alex, Plague Tale isn't so great. It's not as good as you think it is, and it's closer to Saints Row. I mean, I guess, but I would, and I said this on Twitter, I would never, besides for this conversation or to talk about how they're on 2 polar opposites, I would never bring up these 2 games in the same sentence. They should never be uttered in the same sentence unless you're talking about how they're so vastly different and how one's good and one's bad. Besides that, you should never bring them up. So the fact that these guys gave it the same score is hilarious to me. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on tomorrow's video.